Welcome, everyone, to Redacted on this Monday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
So glad to have you all here. We try to navigate this crazy clown world together. We've got a couple of huge international stories that could have broad implications for us in the United States, in Europe, wherever you happen to be living right now, because these globalists seem to be pushing us towards world war. We're going to be looking at a couple of developments. Number one, we're going to be looking at Ukraine. And now, with about a week or so before Putin's massive offensive, NATO is sort of scrambling right now, and they totally underestimated how this was all going to play out. So talk of sending troops from France, talk of sending troops from the UK, talk of sending troops from the United States. You literally have the head of the Democrats in the House talking about that. So we're going to look at what Putin is doing in response tonight. Plus, we're going to talk about Israel, if you can add all of that up.
We are going to talk about Israel. In fact, the ground invasion of Rafah was on the precipice this morning. We're going to talk about what happens there. Also, Pfizer says that cancer is the new COVID, as if it's like fall fashion. I mean, it is the Met Gala, so you could go as cancer, I suppose. Yeah. I don't like pharmaceutical companies saying that this is a fashionable thing, these diseases. We're going to talk about that and Pfizer's next moves.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But sorry, real quick. Didn't cancer, wasn't that around just a little bit before the COVID-19 thing happened, like the pandemic? I remember
they wanted you to forget about it. Yeah, they wanted
Cancer is black, right? It goes with everything. Like, basically, it's been around forever.
Okay.
And it's having a renaissance.
How can you call it the new? It's like the new COVID.
Yeah,
it's not new.
That's what they're going to do that because they can sell you medications for it. So Pfizer is going to say, "Hey, you might have forgotten about cancer. Well, we're working on some new medications that can eradicate cancer."
Right. We're not being diminutive about cancer. It's disgusting to talk about it like this, like it's fashionable and profitable, but that's exactly what Pfizer is doing. Also, we're going to talk about frat boy summer because a conservative beer company is saying, hey, conservative values are back and they're throwing a drunk party. I don't know if those things are conservative, like a rager like that is conservative, but let's talk about that as we end the show later. All of that is on the agenda today.
Yeah, so let us know where you're joining us from around the world. Hope you guys had a good weekend. It's been a little crazy. We're watching all of these things play out internationally, but we hope that you guys are safe, happy, and healthy wherever you are. Let us know where you're joining us from. Gwendolyn Scott says, hello, Redacted. Good to see you. Spooky Spoon, nice to see you. We are streaming live on YouTube, on Rumble, and on X as well. So please make sure you subscribe to the channel. A lot of people say, hey, they get unsubscribed on YouTube on a regular basis. You just, YouTube decides to unsubscribe you. So anyway, it's free. You can just subscribe. Hopefully you're a member here. I want to tell you about something. This is crazy. So I want to tell you about our friends at Black Forest Supplements before we get into our top story today. This is absolutely crazy. We are entering. So take a look at your screen, okay? This is the tyranny of the government right now. This is NMN. Okay. And I'll get back to that in a second here. But just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with, these three-letter agencies, the FBI, CIA, FDA, they just keep growing and growing and growing. They were once symbols of protection and order, seem to have been weaponized against us, the American people. To give you an idea of the gravity of the situation, consider this. The IRS has amassed an arsenal of 4,500 guns, 5 million rounds of ammunition, 621 shotguns. The list is endless. The U.S. Post Office doing the same thing as a tactical team. The IRS right now, I mean, the DOD, federal employees with firearms, includes agencies like the IRS, 200,000. That surpasses the Marine Corps right now. So if your government doesn't use deadly force on people raiding into your country, then they don't defend these borders, but they'll use deadly force to come and collect your taxes. So the reason I'm telling you about this NMN, it's not just a supplement, it's a game changer. And a recent Harvard study, which you can check out, we'll have a link in the description, showed that NMN can actually help reduce weight, cholesterol, even blood pressure in overweight adults. This thing has been dubbed the limitless pill. It can take 10 to 20 years off your life. It's like the fountain of youth in a bottle. But guess what? The FDA, another three-letter agency, they're trying to keep it away from you. Why? Because it's healthy and it's with a strong population, it's hard to control you. The FDA is attempting to change the status of NMN supplements to be classified as a drug, which would allow pharmaceutical companies then to take control of it. Of course, this is not based on efficacy or safety of NMN, but it's just trying to corner the market and to take it away from you right now. So don't let them do this. You can try it right now. We're going to have you can try it right now just by going to this link on your screen, blackforestsupplements.com/redacted. I genuinely respect what these guys are doing. They're fighting. They're standing up for what's right. And this happens to some of these companies like this. They come up with an amazing product, and then the FDA swoops in and tries to stop them from doing it. So right now, you're going to buy one, get one free. They have a 48-hour deal that they're doing just for our show. So go to blackforestsupplements.com/redacted if you want to support the show and support these guys. We really appreciate it. All right. How's everyone doing? Everyone good? Mm-hmm. All right. You guys all ready?
I think I am.
Let's get into it. So Russia has placed the CIA-controlled Zelensky on their criminals most wanted list. Can you believe this? That means that there's no negotiating with Zelensky. He's finished. Russia will only accept the unconditional surrender of someone they now have classified as a criminal. Of course, Zelensky is a criminal controlled by the CIA and MI6, sending over 600,000 Ukrainians to die after he had signed a peace agreement, or a peace agreement was signed, and it was in his hands. So that's blood on his hands.
Yes.
Soldiers know that it's all over, by the way.
Unequivocally, so that he could continue to get camera time, so that he could pose for his...
Yeah, he could go to the Grammys,
so
he could go to the Academy Awards.
get his good side on, Western TV.
So soldiers know that it's over. I mean, they're sending their last messages now to their families, letting them know that their leaders like Zelensky control everything. Some of these new videos that are coming out from Ukrainian soldiers, just heartbreaking. But take a look at this one. This one, he knows that they're not controlling anything and that they are just cannon fodder.
Я думаю, братан, що це, блядь. Всім уже на все похуй, блядь. Мы же с тобой нихуя, во-первых, не решаем. Во-вторых, это, походу, последние дни, блядь.
So we don't control anything, and it looks like these are our last days. Now, these are messages coming out from units that have had like most of their units and other men killed in action. We're going to show you more in just a second. Do you want to say something?
No.
So meanwhile, NATO seems hell-bent on going into a full-blown war with Russia. As of this hour, Russia is heading towards total victory in the Donbass. Tactical victory right now. Former Eastern Ukraine, of course, just in time for the May 9th victory parade in Moscow. Now, those aren't my words, but rather the words of a Ukrainian general that The Economist just interviewed. Fresh Russian push will test Ukraine severely, says a senior general. And this is an interview with the deputy head of Ukraine's military intelligence. So they're finished. This is collapsing. This is literally, and he talks about how this is just timed almost perfectly for this May 9th celebration parade in Moscow. So imagine that. We've totally cleared. We can declare victory in the Donbass. So now will you surrender? Because that's what we've been saying all along. Operationally, this is what we are here to achieve.
Well,
Are you
don't
going to
worry
surrender
about
or
it,
not?
Because last year, Zelensky declared that Ukraine would no longer celebrate that victory day on May 9th. They now celebrate it with the Western Europeans on May 8th. So, they'll be partying. They still will get their party in.
Yeah, exactly. So this means next stop is either Russia crosses the Dnieper River and advances towards other major cities, including Kiev, until unconditional surrender, or NATO intervenes with soldiers. And option number 2 is what NATO is pushing for, it would seem. This morning, France and the UK decided it would be a good idea to send troops to Ukraine. And the US says they're considering it as well. Are they out of their minds? I mean,
Yes.
this is something Putin said specifically would constitute war with NATO. So take a look at this. These are the ambassadors. This is the French ambassador and the British ambassador coming out, getting basically yelled at, called to the Kremlin, basically. And Moscow said, we know that there are troops in Ukraine. They left after spending about 40 minutes there. Both refused to talk to the cameras, to the press. Now, there have been some false reports floating around by the Asia Times this afternoon that says there are 100 French Foreign Legion forces in Ukraine. That was all from one source at the Asia Times, who's known to have some fake news, but that is fake news. But so we don't know actually how many French forces and British forces are there, but enough that Russia is not happy about it and called the ambassadors in about it. So we don't know the numbers. We're trying to find out more details about this. And of course, this will be foggy, but we're trying our best to get those answers on that. But this is a red line for Putin. So you're going to have NATO forces in Ukraine now? openly. Not just like helpful guys that are just helping to help with some of the equipment. No, you're actually going to put boots on the ground in a meaningful way. It's game over. A few weeks ago, Putin told Macron that any French troops that you will send will end up like Napoleon. They will suffer the fate of Napoleon's army. Hungarian foreign minister is warning Macron that you are sparking World War III with this talk of sending in forces. If there's a nuclear war, everyone will die. So stop all of your talk about trying to send in forces, Macron. It's not going to happen, but they seem hell-bent on doing it. They know that this is it. This is the end game right now.
Right, and you can see even from this Reuters headline that it says Putin allies tell Macron. So it's not even Putin personally and how he feels about NATO troops being in a neighboring country. Recall that his parliament voted for the special military operation in 2022. So, they would like to make it seem that it's just this beast that's being provoked, but it's absolutely not. This has complete support inside the majority party in Russia.
Yeah, absolutely. And today, Russia told the UK, quote, "You won't be safe in Downing Street either." Sends this chilling threat, you won't be safe in Downing Street because we are going to launch and test nuclear weapons. Now, as a show of force and defiance, after the West vows to back Ukraine atop. This is Medvedev.
Again, look at this headline again. They're saying that it's Putin. He's wild. He flies off the cuff. But then who actually said it? It says below the attribution is top Kremlin crony. So they would like you to believe that it is just a personal vengeance of Putin. And it's clearly not. We're playing politics here with entire governments.
Yeah. And Russia's Medvedev actually released the statement. And I think they like to kind of play him good cop, bad cop there. So there's Medvedev. I'm just going to read what he said this afternoon. The choir of irresponsible scoundrels from the Western political elite calling for sending their troops to a non-existent country is expanding. Now it includes representatives from the U.S. Congress, the French, the British leadership, as well as certain lunatics from the Baltics and Poland. They're also advocating for the active use of their missile weapons supplied to the Bandera followers, also across the entire territory of Russia. So basically saying, yeah, you're going to use Western weapons now to try to spark and hit inside of Russia. And this is not just a spring escalation, but a cynical calculation for political dividends. This is some total degradation of the ruling class in the West. This class genuinely refuses to logically connect elementary things.
Yes.
Sending their troops to the territory of the former Ukraine will lead to their country's direct involvement in a war, to which we will have to respond. And unfortunately, not in the territory of former Ukraine. So we're not just going to attack in former Ukraine. We are going to hit Downing Street. We will hit targets in Europe that have already been mapped out and ready to go. They're telling us this. So it's not going to happen in Ukraine. It's going to hit people where they live. In this case, he says, none of them will be able to hide either on Capitol Hill or Elysee Palace or the 10 Downing Street. A global catastrophe will ensue. By the way, Kennedy and Khrushchev understood this over 60 years ago, but today's infantile idiots who have clawed their way to power in the West stubbornly refuse to realize it, he says. And that's precisely why today the General Staff has begun preparations for exercises, including practical training on the preparation and use of non-strategic nuclear weapons.
At least they're not targeting civilians, because most civilians in those places whose leaders reside in those places don't want this, would love nothing more than for our leaders to stop this.
Yeah, I mean, we would love this. I mean, a new poll out says 70% of Americans don't want us to have we don't want to be sending any of these weapons we don't want to have any involvement. So why is America doing it? Because of our bloodlust of the military-industrial complex, the provocation of Putin, the toppling of Putin, so that we can have access to his resources, steal his minerals, so that we have a destabilized Russia like in Libya and other places that we try to go in and destabilize. That was the goal. That's the goal, is to go into Russia and destabilize the country, swoop in for its resources. This weekend, Hakeem Jeffries got a nice love fest profile on 60 Minutes. There he is, Democrat leader. And he is saying, yeah, you know what? We're going to send U.S. troops. They will enter the Ukrainian conflict. Yeah, that's all we need. We're going to send them in because, you know what? If it looks like the front lines are going to start to fall, and that's exactly what France is saying, that's what Britain is saying. If Russia is able to push beyond that front line right now, the Ukrainian front line, and push beyond that, we'll send troops. So NATO is fully in this. This is why you're seeing this scrambling this afternoon. The FT this morning, Financial Times, saying that Russia is plotting to sabotage targets across Europe. Of course they are. So the FT writes this as if Russia hasn't already identified each specific target that it would strike in a retaliation. Political science Vladimir Kolinov says, amazing people. Western leaders are directly talking about how they will use their Ukrainian proxies to blow up Russian facilities, kill Russian people, destroy our bridges and oil storage facilities, and stage terrorist attacks on the territory of the Russian Federation, which is what they're talking about doing, using long-range weapons to strike inside of Russia.
And have been doing this.
So he's saying, of
time.
course, you're an idiot if you don't think we've already identified. And then they're terribly surprised that someone in Russia, he says, is planning retaliatory strikes against their infrastructure facilities. The Financial Times devoted a big article to this, he writes. We need to tell them in a secret. In Russia, of course, a list of European facilities for nuclear strikes is also planned. Of course, in the case provided by our defense concept. Otherwise, they really think that Russia is bluffing about this? Again, Ukrainian soldiers are sending video messages home to their moms right now, basically saying, I'm not going to see you again. It was a mistake to tell you, Mom, that I'd be home soon. This soldier just lost most of the men in his unit. Now, I'm not going to speak over his voice. I want you to watch this. And if you're driving and listening to this audio as a podcast, I will kind of repeat what he says. But I just want people to watch this young boy saying, Mom, I promised you I'd be home soon. That was a lie. I lost most of the men in our unit. We now know that that's the case. And also, by the way, you might be seeing this video and he might already be dead, thanks to Zelensky. Watch.
Всім привіт. Я ще живий. Вчора нас сильно потріпало. Мам, пробач мене, будь ласка. Я обіцяв, що приїду додому. Я очень тебя люблю. Мамуся. Я обіцяю, що зроблю усе, щоб оказатися рядом з тобою. Мені дуже тяжко. Я устав, мама. Я так не хочу більше воювати. Ну, це того не стоїть, мама. Я тебя очень люблю.
Well, our senators think you should stay right there. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We decided to send more money, so you stay there. You don't get to go home. We don't want that. Apparently, our leaders don't.
So if you were driving and listening to the audio version of that, I mean, he's doing a selfie video to send to his mom, hoping that his mom gets to see this video, and explaining that most of the men in his unit were hit hard yesterday and killed. He doesn't want to fight anymore. It's not worth it. He promised her that he would be home. He shouldn't have said that, he says. I promise you that I promised you I'd be back, and I shouldn't have said that. That was wrong.
Let me just point out, Zelensky promised that they would be rotated out in his updated draft agreement, which was signed into law just 2 weeks ago. He said he was going to rotate out the people who'd been on the battlefield for months and months. And in that updated draft law, he reneged on that. It's not him. It's not that kid who is reneging on his promise. It's Zelensky.
Right.
So let's make no mistake. He does not give a shit about those young boys.
No.
At all. Or the older men who are already died.
No. And of course, the United States is going to send, $61 billion that's not really going to arrive there at all anyway. It's going to line the pockets of military-industrial complex members, and the money that does make it into Ukraine will go into the pockets of these oligarchs. Video surfacing today of Ukrainian leaders, members of the government, who are partying right now and vacationing in France on yachts. You check out those videos, driving beautiful Bentleys. They're just partying on yachts while these young men are dying right now. So again, do you think Putin is bluffing? You're going to mess with him now, and you're going to put in NATO forces? Again, we're going to see what's about to happen here, but you have this May 9th push into total victory, it seems, in Donbass, give or take a few days, but it's imminent. And then when that happens, what happens next? Do you fully surrender, or are we now going to push further across the river and move on to the capital? That's when you're going to see world war, because the West right now is just way too proud. NATO is way too proud to put their tail between their legs and say, we underestimated. We need to go home, because we will lose. We will absolutely lose. And so many other people, millions of people will die if this continues. Let us know your thoughts on this in the comments below. A hard pill to swallow. But, I think it's important to see the human side of this, and these soldiers who are saying, we don't want to fight. You're leaving us out here as cannon fodder. We don't have weapons. We've lost half of our men. And I want to come home, Mom.
And he said it was never worth it. And absolutely it wasn't.
Oh, my God. Hard to watch. We've got more news to get to here on your Monday. Something else that's incredibly hard to watch right now is what's happening in Rafah as the invasion is unfolding. And Israel, of course, is dropping leaflets telling the people in southern Gaza right now, the remaining people there, the 1.1 or 1.2 million of them who've been relocated to that area because they were told to go south. Now they're being told to get out of there and to go back to an encampment that's already been bombed. Aid trucks are not able to get in. So this invasion is about to happen. And we're going to see a catastrophe unlike anything we've ever seen before. And the United States is just letting it happen, watching this slaughter happening. I can't believe these genocidal leaders in the year 2024. That's what we've got. We're also going to talk about cancer tonight.
Yes, we are, because CEO of Pfizer, Albert Bourla, the veterinarian, he's not a doctor. He says that, hey, cancer is our next blockbuster. How do you feel about that sentence?
He's like, how do we top what we did with COVID?
It's going to be a blockbuster.
Let's come up with something.
Yeah.
Cancer.
Let's think about that word for a little bit when we get to that. Let me know how you feel and whether or not you are personally really worried about whether or not Pfizer's profits will rebound since the last COVID vaccine rollout, because they've been in the dumps. So are you worried about this? Are you hoping they get another blockbuster like a Marvel film?
No.
Let us know.
Also, we're going to talk about beer tonight. And Bud Light, of course. Bud Light's still reeling from people pouring their beer down the drain because no one wants to drink that piss anymore after what they did with Dylan Mulvaney, of course, and insulting all of their customers, basically. Well, now get ready for the anti-Bud Light. The anti-Bud Light rolling out just in time for summer. It could be the anti-Bud Light summer. We'll tell you about that. But first,
we want to tell you about our friends over at Nom Nom, because if you want to give your good dog real food, you should try out Nom Nom, because it is made with exactly that, real food, not processed stuff that you get in the grocery store. This is for your dog because they love great tasting meals just like us, but they have their own nutritional needs. So Nom Nom has nutrient packed recipes that are developed by board certified veterinary nutritionists, freshly made and shipped free to your door. Recipes are made with 100% premium ingredients, which means no freaky fillers or funky stuff. Nom Nom has delivered already over 40 million meals to good dogs like yours. Find Nom Nom. You can find them at PetSmart, at Chewy.com, or have it just delivered straight to you. Nom Nom provides your dog's favorite recipes whenever, wherever, and however you want. So say goodbye to boring dog food that gives your dog a reason to run to their bowl with every meal, every day, because if you give them kibble, this is what Grover does, our little pincher. He's like, okay, kibble, that's fine, but what do you have up there on your plate? Maybe we don't have him trained well. He's not one of those dogs who ignores us when we're eating at the table. He's like, what's going on there? Is there some for me? So they can smell real food. They want some too. Give it a try. You can go to trynom.com/redacted and get 50% off your no risk 2-week free trial. That's trynom.com/redacted. All right,
let's talk about Rafah, because this is minute by minute unfolding right now as Israel is striking Rafah after Hamas has accepted Gaza ceasefire proposal. However, there is nonstop bombing that continues to unfold in eastern Rafah that has been going right now. And so flares have been lighting up the night sky tonight there as well. This is video from earlier. This is the scene right now as people try to scramble and get out of the rubble, trying to find what they can to move and get out of the way, because Israel has dropped leaflets, because the invasion of Rafah is beginning. At the same time, Benjamin Netanyahu has unveiled their true plan for Gaza. It's their 2035 Gaza plan to rebuild Gaza into an Israeli version of Dubai, which we'll get to that part in a moment. But first, Israel began this morning dropping leaflets over southern Gaza, telling them to get out because the invasion is about to start. Where are they supposed to go? Everything has been destroyed. They've leveled buildings, but they've really lost, which we'll get to the PR part of this in a second here. They've really lost the PR. And this is exactly what military leaders have said. Yeah, they might destroy the buildings and they might drive Palestinians out, but they are going to lose the broader war, because now you're going to be going up against Lebanon. You're going to be going up against Hezbollah. You're going to be going up against Iran. And this is not going to fly. Those are from military leaders. Everything has been destroyed. And in these areas now, and journalist Vanessa Beeley points out, according to our friends in Rafah, there are no IOF forces on the ground. The only Zionist forces are in the area dividing north from south. Leaflets have been dropped in eastern Rafah telling civilians to evacuate to Khan Yunis, which is devastated without any services at all. So they're being told, go to Khan Yunis. Friends are paralyzed with fear, not knowing if they should stay in other areas of Rafah until the last minute or leave now. This is barbaric psychological warfare on top of the ongoing massacres. So there's nothing for them to go to. Now, this brave Sky News reporter actually confirmed live on television, which you don't really see happening anymore. Mostly they're all in the tank for the other side, of course. But here's what Sky News reporter just confirmed, telling all of us what Vanessa Beeley just tweeted a little while ago. See how long this guy actually has a job for telling us the truth. Watch.
The Israeli Defense Forces is encouraging, in their words, encouraging residents in southeast Gaza to advance towards what they call an expanded humanitarian area to the north. That is centered around the city of Khan Yunis and a coastal community called Al-Mawasi. They claim that this area contains field hospitals, tents, food, water, medicine, additional supplies. That is a claim that international aid agencies, the WFP and the like, will treat with real skepticism. I think they say the Israelis have not done enough to facilitate these humanitarian supplies. Should also say that people are being asked to go to an area that has already been badly damaged, badly bombed in this war. The area around the city of Khan Yunis was largely destroyed in January when the IDF laid siege to it. So we're talking about a situation where people are being asked to migrate again, and I think we should probably talk about the significance of this. 1.2 million civilians crowded into the southern section of Gaza. They're now being asked, really at the point of another mass migration back to the north to an area that has been badly bombed. And I think
so moving these people into a total area, total area, there's no food aid, there's no medicine at all. And if you want to understand like the differences here, when you look at the genocide that's been unfolding in eastern Ukraine since 2014, right? And those people which have been bombed mercilessly by the Ukrainians, killing ethnic Russians in eastern Ukraine, I all along said, war was not the answer, right? But still, these people were being genocided on a regular basis. And you had Russia coming in trying to protect those individuals. And that's what they said they were going to do, is move into that area and secure those people and protect those people to stop the slaughtering of these individuals. This is the opposite happening here. You're literally moving in and killing innocent people and doing the exact same thing. And like Israelis to Ukrainians, basically carrying out a genocide against these individuals right now.
Are you familiar with the term kettling? It's a police, like a riot police tactic, where when you have a protest going on and it's peaceful, the riot police will continually guide, like tell the protest that they have to go to a particular place, and they run them into a place where there is no exit, and then they continue to tell them they have to leave, but the riot police are blocking the exit. It's called kettling. And so then when the people try to leave, then they get arrested for resisting. And that's basically what Israel's done. They drop leaflets in the north of Gaza telling them to move south. So people start moving south. Then they drop leaflets in the south telling them to keep moving. You can go to Rafah. Now they're in Rafah and they're kettled. They have nowhere to go. And now they're saying, well, you've got to leave here too. Like, that's exactly the tactic that was used here.
What is the purpose of that? To get them to behave badly so that you can arrest them?
Because you want to arrest them, and you want to arrest them. Yeah, in the idea of kettling is because the riot police want to arrest otherwise peaceful protesters. So by putting them in a position where they cannot leave, then they're not following orders. And then to leave, they have to go through the riot police, in which case they get arrested. In this case, obviously, it would be just to eliminate everybody.
And Graffiti says, kudos to Redacted for not making this about the Palestinians. It's not. No, it's about money. I mean, it's about an expansion of territory. It has been, just like the 6-Day War was an expansion of territory into Sinai. I mean, this is exactly what this is. So you're pushing these people out, which you don't want them in these lands at all. You want their oil, you want their gas, and you're going to ethnically cleanse these individuals. And you're pushing them out. That's exactly what's happening. Let's follow the money. And this goes back to 1948. Of course, it all started then. And this is part of the plan. So they don't want them there. They can't have... Israel can't exist the way that they want it to exist with Palestine. Just bottom line. And that they've been open about that. Read Ben Gurion's diaries if you want. And you can see all of it right there. World Food Program Director Cindy McCain says northern Gaza is experiencing full-blown famine, calling for a ceasefire and for the WFP to have unfettered access to Gaza. The head of the World Food Program has said northern Gaza is experiencing full-blown famine. Meanwhile, the UN's food weapon program, I mean, they're saying we can't get aid in here to children, to women right now. We can't get this in here. Like, and maybe, I guess we say women and children, right? Because I think we care about women and children a lot, but men are also suffering. They're not carrying guns around. These are men, these are fathers, these are elderly. It doesn't really matter. People can't get food. It's full-blown famine right now. And these grain trucks are being sabotaged by random people, Israelis who, like this fat bastard who thought it'd be funny to throw bags of rice on the ground. Hey, I'm going to get up here. Here's one. Let's just get up and toss them down. I showed you this last week. He hasn't missed a meal in a few months, but he's fine to throw their food on the ground, drive over it, step on it. So this invasion and slaughter is going to happen at any moment, and we're already seeing, of course, massive attacks right now in eastern Rafah as they're being pushed into this Khan Yunis area, or the goal, of course, is to push them out completely and into Egypt as well. And, the talking heads on television and corporate media are very happy that Israel waited and showed some constraint. I almost fell out of my chair when I heard this. Oh, you're happy that Israel held back and showed some constraint so that aid could get into this population, and to consider how the rest of the world feels about this ethnic cleansing that's happening right now.
Okay, before we show this, though, Israel is holding young children prisoner and has been since before October 7th. They are torturing and raping young boys in prison and kidnapping them. So, okay, restraint, huh?
Yeah, a lot of restraint.
All right.
Yeah. So play this soundbite, please.
I think they do have to take into consideration not only the advice they're getting from the United States, but from a variety of other countries around the world. It appears they're doing that, and it is possible to accomplish military objectives and at the same time take care of the population. And I think that's the real task that is before Israel. And I'm glad that it appears that they're thinking through this very, very carefully.
Oh, okay.
I'm just glad that they're really thinking through this very, very carefully. And when the West has asked them to not do this, when Antony Blinken basically said to not do this, they said, we're going to do it anyway. So thanks for your advice, but we're going to do it anyway. What a crock of garbage. Maybe people who watch Fox News will be fooled by that load of garbage and that propaganda, but we are not. I was watching tons of propaganda on Fox News this weekend. It was unbelievable, the amount. Social media also, though, helping to finally get the truth out. from journalists and sources who are not on the Israeli payroll. So really, social media right now is like the only way that we're able to get accurate information out of this area. Because if you watch corporate media, you're not going to get it. Now, I want to play for you an incredible piece of video from this weekend. Antony Blinken was asked by Senator Mitt Romney about why Israel is losing the PR war with their genocide. Usually, he says, Israel is able to win the PR war with their Mossad-backed propaganda. They're excellent at it, right? They will call you an anti-Semite, which that word has now lost all meaning. They will call you, they'll say, oh, you're pro-Hamas. That has also lost all meaning. So they've literally lost this PR war now. No one buys that garbage anymore unless you're an idiot. They own every politician in Washington, D.C. So except for like 12 of them right now, they own all of them. So, Mr. Blinken, why is Israel losing the PR war so badly? It can't even say anti-Semitism anymore because that word has lost all meaning. And everyone is owned by Israel in Washington. So why aren't more people supportive of the genocide in Gaza? Watch this amazing exchange. This is unbelievable.
Why has the PR been so awful? I know that's not your area of expertise, but you have to have some thoughts on that, which is, I mean, as you said, why has Hamas disappeared in terms of public perception? An offer is on the table to have a ceasefire, and yet the world is screaming about Israel. It's like, why aren't they screaming about Hamas? Accept the ceasefire, bring home the hostages. It's said it's all the other way around. I mean, typically the Israelis are good at PR. What's happened here? How have they and we been so ineffective at communicating the realities there? And
we're on an intravenous feed of information with new impulses, inputs every millisecond. And of course, the way this is played out on social media has dominated the narrative. And you have a social media ecosystem environment in which context, history, facts get lost, and the emotion, the impact of images dominates. And we can't discount that. But
because they're
I think
true.
it also
Right.
has a very, very, very challenging effect on the narrative.
Yeah, a small parenthetical point, which is some wonder why there was such overwhelming support for us to shut down potentially TikTok or other entities of that nature. If you look at the postings on TikTok and the number of mentions of Palestinians relative to other social media sites, it's overwhelmingly so among TikTok broadcasts. So I'd note that's of real interest, and the president will get the chance to make action in that regard.
So
I can't believe
He said the thing.
Yeah, they said that.
he said the thing. What was the thing?
The thing that we talked about this very specific thing when they were talking about when we did a story on banning TikTok. The conclusion that you came up with was basically like, this has nothing to do with Chinese spying and everything to do with Israel's influence in the United States, because Free Palestine was trending over support for Israel on TikTok.
Yeah, and they think you're stupid.
Out loud.
They think you're stupid. They think you at home right now are stupid, that you would believe that it had anything to do with China. It had everything to do with Israel. They control Washington, D.C. And you can love the Israeli people. You can love the people that live in Israel, but you can hate the intelligence community and the governments that rule and want you to follow a certain narrative, right? We love human beings. You can hate governments, though, and you can hate Zionism. So access to facts and information is causing Israel to lose the PR war right now. So what remains of Palestinian women, children, teenagers, they'll be either killed or moved out of Gaza completely to Egypt or to the United States. That's part of the plan. So what's next for Gaza, though? Well, it's empty. It's totally destroyed. How are Israel and the United States going to steal the oil and all of the natural gas off of Gaza and to enrich the likes of BlackRock and Vanguard? Well, look no further than the brand new Gaza 2035 plan, which Netanyahu unveiled this weekend. Great timing, too. He's like, hey, we're about to destroy Rafah, totally eliminate about 1 million people. But here's a 9-page PDF for our plan. This is what we plan to do in Gaza, which is perfect. It's like we want to build our own Dubai. in Gaza. Perfect timing. So take a look at this. This is the new Israel 2035 plan for Gaza. Look how beautiful that will look once they rebuild it and kick all of those all those dirty Palestinians out of there. And they'll build new rail infrastructure, new port infrastructure. It'd be easy access to all of that oil, and they'll be able to get all of this into the Middle East economy. So a place so devoid of Palestinians, of course, as they describe it. They describe it as a future where Gaza is de-radicalized from Islamism, transformed into a trade hub of prosperity and innovation, and integrated into the Middle East economy. So a place totally devoid of Palestinians, of course. According to the Jerusalem Post, the documents lay out 3 steps to return Gaza to self-governance and economic growth. The first step would see 12 months of humanitarian aid. Guess they're going to start at some point, when Israel would slowly create safe areas in Gaza from north to south. Then a second would be a 5 to 10 year reconstruction process supervised by a coalition of Arab states: Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, Bahrain, Jordan, and Morocco. Egypt's going to love that because Egypt has so much money waiting and ready to go to put into this area. So does the United Arab Emirates, and so does Saudi Arabia. The plan is to move Israeli security responsibility to Israel, the Jerusalem Post writes, while the Arab coalition will create a multilateral body called the Gaza Rehabilitation Authority, the GRA, which would oversee the reconstruction. It's almost like they had this plan for a while, right? I mean, seems like they probably already had this whole thing mapped out a long time ago, don't you think? Or did they just dreamt it up last Thursday night? They have all these partners in place. They have the infrastructure plan. They have the train system plan. They have the ports already planned. They have the partners already lined up. They already have a name for it. They have a 10, 15-year construction plan all planned out. They must have just come up with it.
Literally building the port right now.
They're already building the oil port, as we featured last week on the show. But I love this part. The GRA is to be run by Gazan Palestinians and will take responsibility for managing the safe areas.
The safe areas. Okay.
Yeah, this will be done in coordination with the implementation of a Marshall Plan and a de-radicalization program. And the third stage will be termed self-governance, which will, of course, that's laughable. Under this plan, Israel would then retain the right to act against security threats. So they would get the right to act against security threats. So basically, there's no self-governance, and there's nothing in this plan about a Palestinian state, like a 2-state solution. So that's totally out. There will not be a 2-state solution at all. They will have total security control of the new GRA, this whole entire area, the entire Gaza Strip. So you're looking at your new Gaza Strip. It'll look a lot like Dubai. It'll be free of mostly Palestinians. And America, you're going to get a whole bunch of free oil and natural gas. And Israel, you're going to get billions of dollars in oil and natural gas. So this is your plan. And here you go. There's the new Gaza 2035 plan for you.
So the Palestinians get to govern themselves, but Israel will be the police. Gotcha.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So really,
you know what that reminds me of? A Jewish ghetto. And how'd that go?
Right.
That's not desirable.
Right.
No one wants that.
No one wants that. Well, somebody wants it. And that's why there's billions of dollars waiting to go there right now. Let us know your thoughts on this in the comments below. Zach Starters.
And wasn't that the selling point for Jewish ghettos? It's like, hey, you're going to be able to live in these neighborhoods. You will have self-governance, right? Or am I making a not apt analogy?
Under other security, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
We'll leave that one right there then.
Just
doesn't want to play that one out.
No, just let this hang that one out there to dry and see how people think about it.
Okay.
All right, more news coming here on this Monday. We're going to talk about Pfizer's new cancer blockbuster. They say it's going to take over for COVID. COVID, people aren't getting the COVID shot as much anymore. So now they got to make sure that they've got a new thing waiting in the wings. So Albert Bourla, the CEO of Pfizer, is ready to go with a new cancer medication. We'll talk about that. And Frat Boy Summer is coming. It's a response to the Bud Light backlash.
And more. It may be indicative of so much more. We're going to talk about that as well. But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at Fast Growing Trees, because did you know that they are the biggest online nursery in the U.S. with more than 10,000 different kinds of plants and over 2 million happy customers in the U.S. So if you didn't get to your local garden center and then when you get there, there are all the sad looking plants, well, you don't have to just settle for that. Go to fastgrowingtrees.com and you can search from all types of healthy varietals that will fit in your yard and be good for your neighborhood, because they will suggest what will work in your space. They can have everything you could possibly want, like fruit trees, palm trees, evergreens, houseplants, and so much more. Whatever you're interested in, they have it for you, and they can help you grow it and give you tips on where to put it and how to care for it. They also have their 30-day Alive and Thrive guarantee. So they offer free plant consultations for the life of your plant, which hopefully will be long and beautiful in your yard. So you can use our code Redacted for 15% off. Head on over to fastgrowingtrees.com/redacted. One more time, that's fastgrowingtrees.com/redacted, and use our code Redacted for 15% off.
Yeah, I mean, just make a statement here. Like, we are very much anti-war and anti-people being killed. Like, I know that seems, it's not in fashion in 2024, but that's our stance on this show. We are not pro-Hamas. We are not pro-slaughtering. We're not pro, hey, what, October 7th, Hamas killed a bunch of innocent civilians. No, we're not for that. Absolutely not. We're not for also slaughtering and killing children and women. We're not for that. We're not for ethnic Russians being slaughtered in the Donbass for the last 10 years. We're not for that. We're not for anybody being killed by war. These globalists are hell-bent on doing that. I bet 70% of Americans don't want to have any involvement in this stuff right now around the world. They want the United States being rebuilt at home with a wide open border. That's what we are for. But we are here to help you understand and call out the propaganda and the lies that these governments are trying to tell you. They're trying to pit one another against each other right now. That's why you see the campus protests, right? They want us fighting like that. Meanwhile, they're building a friggin' port to steal oil. Like, that's the real story here. They're moving these people out of there so they can build an entire brand new city. That's the whole goal. So just pay attention, people. They want us fighting about this stuff, and they are moving us around on a friggin' chessboard right now, playing like three-dimensional chess with us.
A lot of times, you might feel to yourself, oh, this group of government or military needs to go in and take care of this group of people. So you have been told to justify killing. For what reason? Because you're told to hate one group or think that that group is a bigger threat or whatever. But whenever you're taught that killing and war is the reason, usually you've been manipulated into something. And so the more you study, the more you'll see that clearly. So that's why we're here, to study.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, let's study this. Pfizer says that cancer is the new COVID, and they expect their cancer drugs to be blockbuster. Now, how do we feel about Pfizer using the term blockbuster for its upcoming buffet of cancer drugs? A blockbuster means major commercial success, like Independence Day, the movie. Should I care if a pharmaceutical company has blockbusters? Do you? This is weird, the way this is being presented to us. We are being treated as if we collectively really are cheering for Pfizer. Here's a segment from this weekend where the news media is rooting for Pfizer's cancer drug to replace its COVID profits. Notice how excited she assumes we all are for Pfizer's return to mega profits.
Fox Business Alert, look at this intraday of Pfizer. Shares popped this morning and right now are just off session highs, up 6.25% after the pharma giant reported a huge surprise beat in first quarter profits. That was enough for investors to forgive a 20% dip in revenue. Pfizer attributed the beat to extremely effective cost-cutting measures, as well as a much smaller than expected dip in sales for specifically its COVID-19 antiviral pill Paxlovid. The results provide much-needed good news for the company. Just last week, the stock hit its lowest level since 2012 on a split-adjusted basis. But is this report now a sign that Pfizer's fumbles over the last year are now in the rearview mirror?
Okay.
She loves it. I mean, they're very excited about this, Right. And it's amazing. So Pfizer can roll out this new, Pfizer term for blockbuster for their new cancer thing, and they can go on all the media.
Yeah.
They can, because they funnel so much money to these media companies. That's why we are independent media. We don't take money from big pharma companies or anything like that. So they can go on the Today Show, they can go on MSNBC, they can go on Fox like this, and they're like, here we go, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's not subtle that Pfizer is paying the network that she is on. Now, I don't share her enthusiasm for Pfizer to make big bucks because I know that they don't invest those in people who get injured by their products, nor do they do better clinical trials. So, but okay, some people are excited. And yes, I would love to see a cure for cancer just like you, but do I trust it to come from Pfizer? Now, here is Albert Bourla, the CEO of Pfizer, who is incidentally not a doctor. He has a PhD in vaccine science, but let's hear him talk about his company's. I'm sorry, what did I say? Veterinary.
Vaccine. I think I meant veterinary.
Sorry, he has a PhD in veterinarian. That means he works with he's an animal doctor, okay, not people doctor. Here he is talking about his upcoming cancer products.
And oncology, it is our new COVID. So we did what we did with COVID. We are very proud. We saved the world, but it is behind us now. We want to do once more, and I think oncology is our best chance to do it. But
oncology.
Of course, with many other therapeutic areas.
Okay, oncology, specifically what? And could that eventually be blockbuster drugs in that pipeline?
I think will be blockbuster drugs, and more importantly, they will be blockbuster drugs because they will have significant impact on cancer patients.
Okay. Did you hear what he just said? We already saved the world once with our COVID vaccine. You want to let that one go? I can't. I'm not going to let that go. Because when you search for data that shows that the vaccine ended the pandemic, you do not find it. Readily available data shows that the vaccinated now, in the CDC even says the vaccinated are more likely to contract COVID than the unvaccinated and be hospitalized. There's 2 studies that they use to say the vaccine ended the pandemic or was the thing, right? The first one compared the COVID vaccine and low rates of death and intubation. That's when they put you on breathing machines, breathing tubes. This is a really strange study. We talked about it with Dr. Peter McCullough when it came out last April. It compared the original COVID vaccine with death rates and these ventilations during the Omicron wave. And it was weird for a couple of reasons. One, the original COVID vaccine was not made for Omicron. And 2, they studied immunocompromised people, but they don't account for previous infection, which is a huge omission because we know that people with previous infections have superior immunity. And their results, they never really say, we're pretty sure that the vaccinated did not die or go on these ventilators. They said that their results show waning protection against the ventilation and the death after 6 months from receipt of the last dose, but demonstrate clinically meaningful levels of protection for less than a year. So that's what they're going on, that they saved the world with some meaningful data. That's not even statistically significant. That's less than that. Save the world, you say? Also, they use this study that was published this year. It estimates the number of lives saved by the COVID vaccine. This study really proves nothing because they just took an expected death number, which they wrote down from their own math models and concluded, well, we never reached those numbers. So that's because of the vaccine. And that's how they prove that the COVID vaccine was effective. Also, if you see at the bottom, this was funded by the WHO, so read it for yourself. So that's what Albert Bourla is using to say that they saved the world. That's all they've got. Okay, so I just couldn't let that one slide, and I don't think any of us should. But notice how the corporate media could. He said, we saved the world. We're on to the next thing now. And she was like, yeah, you did that. Nice.
We saved the world and we're on to the next thing.
Yeah.
No one's going to correct him on that.
Join me, everybody, in freaking out that he said that uncontested.
We saved the world. Yeah, okay.
And she said nothing.
You literally have Pfizer executives on the record in front of government officials in Australia going on the record about how they didn't even know they weren't even admitting the damages that were being done, and they knew internally what was happening.
Yes.
They didn't even test it clinically on animals. They didn't even have the numbers totally. They said like it was 11 or something like that. It wasn't even that high. Mm-hmm. I mean, the list was pretty endless about Pfizer's treachery at this point. We can go through how many different countries that are dealing with Pfizer lawsuits right now and trying to we go from the UK to the Netherlands to Australia to the United States right now. And you guys saved the world? You guys saved the world?
No,
I point you to Brett Weinstein's interview with Tucker Carlson, where he lays out how many people, you know the numbers, how many people have actually been affected by this. Go seek out that interview. He lays out the numbers in stark contrast. So he saved the world? Maybe it's the exact opposite.
So the journalist should have said, I'm sorry, can I stop you there? Based on what data are you saying that you saved the world, please? I'll wait.
Because I have some data of my own right here. You want to read it?
You don't even have to have data. Just ask him, like, on what basis are you saying that, sir, please? I'd like to know, because these two studies are the things that are most usually used when someone says that, you know, the vaccine was the thing. And I would like to see something better than that. So
no, here's what, well, when you see one of these business networks, a CNBC, a Bloomberg, or the one you were just watching there, they will never challenge these CEOs. They will never challenge those companies because that's their bread and butter. That network wouldn't exist if it wasn't for having guests like the CEO of Pfizer on at noon, coming up at noon today.
Yeah.
The CEO of Pfizer is going to be our guest here on the show, right? If they were challenging these guests all the time with tough questions, those people wouldn't show up on their show and they wouldn't have a show.
Well, we're going to see in a second what happened to Chris Cuomo when he left CNN versus when he was on CNN about honesty around the vaccine. Now, let's circle back for a second. I always get little pings in the chat that this is something I say a lot.
Circle back.
Circle back.
Let's circle back.
Let's circle back. Let's holla back here about cancer. Now, we know that there has been a resurgence in turbo cancers since the pandemic. And what happened during the pandemic? A vaccine rollout. So is there an association with COVID vaccines and cancer recurrence? And now Pfizer has a cancer drug. Is that convenient? Well, over the weekend, friend of the show, Neil Oliver, had oncologist Angus Dalgleish, sorry, I'm sure that's wrong, on his show to discuss this. And what he has been observing is shocking. Watch.
Can you explain in simple terms what it is that you are seeing that has got the alarm bells ringing?
Well, the first thing I saw doing a regular melanoma clinic that I've been doing for years was that I was starting to see people who were stable, that we've been doing immunotherapy for over 20 years. And I was starting to see people who've been stable for 5, 10, even 20 years relapse, really unusually. They're very fit and healthy. And I've occasionally seen this when somebody gets very depressed, they get knocked back, a bereavement, a divorce, bankruptcy for months. And we know this depression is associated with immune suppression. So I have seen that 2 or 3 times. And I looked for this in these patients, and there was absolutely no evidence. They were all perfectly happy. So I basically said, what have they all got in common? And they'd all got in common was they'd had the first booster vaccine. It was around this time. And I was able to show that they'd had it, then the relapse started between about 3 weeks and 3 months after the booster vaccine. So I thought this is an association. It doesn't mean to say it's causal. I mean, I'm the first to say that. But when you see an association and that it might be actually inducing it, you have to first of all ask why. Scientifically, is there a rationale for this? And 2, is there anything else? Is it just a coincidence? Well, the thing that alarmed me was that I've done a lot of research on vaccines in my time, and I immediately remembered the model where 1 vaccine's good, 2 might help if the first one didn't react properly, but the 3rd actually causes just more inflammation than good, and actually detracts from the first 2, and the 4th is even worse. And I suddenly thought, is this what I'm seeing here?
Okay. So, again, I want to ask, is there an association between these rises in cases of cancer resurgence and turbo cancers and the convenience of the fact that now Pfizer has a cancer drug that they're testing, right? It feels like maybe they had something to do with the cause that they are trying to, or the effect that they are now trying to solve. That's what it feels like to me. And if you were this Fox News reporter, first of all, you would never have let Albert Bourla just say he had saved the world, his company had. But maybe you should ask that question like, oh, yes, I'm so glad that you're taking a look at cancer because we've seen a lot of cancer resurgence since the pandemic. What do you think is causing the resurgence of cancer?
Right.
What do you think? But no, she did not choose to do that. Watch what
Albert.
she...
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. What would you want to play that out?
I was gonna say like, yeah, hey Albert, just so curious because like right around the same time that your Pfizer thing rolled out, we're seeing now this huge spike in this other thing. Like, I don't know, is there any connection at all? Like, do you see where I'm going here, Albert?
Yeah, why are doctors finding these after the first booster so common? What do you think about that? Good thing you have an antidote though, like in my back pocket, right?
Right.
Okay, she didn't choose to do any of that. Watch what she did choose to do.
I really think that we will move the needle into overall survival of cancer.
That is such music to so many of our viewers' ears at the moment, Albert. And props to the wonderful people at Pfizer. I know how hard they work over years to develop these kinds of drugs. We've followed your company for a long, long time.
Okay, I'm a big fan. I've got all your albums, basically, is what she says. Can you sign my vaccine card? Now, I know you don't like talking about the royal families too much, but I am going to say that I give credence to this conspiracy theory. I'm listening to it, that the king will rebound from his cancer on a Pfizer drug. Here he was last week telling fellow cancer patients that he was going in for his treatment this afternoon.
We're going to see him playing basketball next.
Right.
And the basketball will have a big Pfizer logo on it.
Okay. I'm just saying, I know you don't love talking about the royal family. We don't have to do it anymore. And of course, I hope the king does get better. And I hope there is actually a cure for cancer. I honestly do. But I also think that Pfizer should be pushed to answer for vaccine harms and surging cancer rates. And including the royal family. And I also think they should be pushed to give us full transparency of clinical trials before anything is ever approved by the government. But the media is lazy and they are demurring on this vaccine injury. Another case in point, look at this New York Times article from this weekend, begrudgingly acknowledging vaccine injury. But the headline itself kills me. Not just that there are vaccine injuries, but it's all in your head. These people believe that they're vaccine harmed. It's psychosomatic, you know. It's like people believe in fairies. They believe it. And so you believe in fairies. Let's hear what you have to say. Here they refer to a neuroscience doctor who used to dance and ride her bike for 20 miles at a time. Now she has brain damage and she cannot drive. It says her account is one of the more harrowing, but thousands of Americans believe in fairies. They believe they suffered side effects following COVID vaccination. But as of April, just over 13,000 vaccine injury compensation claims have been filed with the federal government, but to little avail. Only 19% have been reviewed. Even reviewed. I apologize. We had a little disruption. We are back. We are still talking about vaccine injuries. We dropped there for a second, but we're going to pick it right back up there because I would like to play you this story of another man who was interviewed in the New York Times and also interviewed by Chris Cuomo over the weekend on his show. Now, this got a lot of play because Chris Cuomo admits that he too had a vaccine injury. That's interesting. So let's listen to this man's story here too. And what I want you to hear, a couple things is, yes, Chris Cuomo's admission, but also that this man cannot get help. So think of, as you're watching this, Pfizer's record profits, and then this man who gets no help, nothing.
But the problem is people like Sean and me and millions of others who still have weird stuff with their blood work and their lives and their feelings, physically, are not going away. Sean Barkovich joins us now. Sean, why do you believe it's the vaccine? And what has happened when you've tried to get clinical analysis of it or answers?
Why do I believe this? It's not a belief, it's a fact. And as soon as I was injured, 15, 20 minutes of my first dose, I had numbness tingling up and down my injected arm that over days spread to my face and my eyes. I went to see a neurologist. He ran some tests. He's like, well, this is all new. We don't know much about it, but the hospital is going to mandate it. You should get a second dose. And everything in my medical mind and in my bones was telling me, no, if you have a reaction after something, don't do it again. But the pressure was immense. And then 3 weeks rolled around, I got a second dose. And after that, everything blew up. Ugh. I went from being a healthy, 100% healthy, fully functioning nurse to in a complete downward spiral of health. I had a myriad of symptoms.
Have you gotten any clarity from doctors or from the drug manufacturer putting out any information about what could happen as a side effect?
No, as a research nurse practitioner and somebody who worked on vaccine research, I thought after I was injured, there would be people to help me. I'm like, I'm in New York City. I will have there will be medical people ready to help me. There must be interest to find out what happened or what went wrong with me. I reached out to my political representatives. I reached out to the NIH, the CDC, the FDA. I got no answers. No one wanted to touch it. I got token responses back or no response.
Okay. Now, Chris Cuomo later goes on and says, well, I'm going to put together a group of people who's going to look into this because I also have some oddities with my blood work ever since the vaccination. Let's get together. Let's put our heads together and I'm going to help you, which is interesting, right? Because Chris Cuomo never told us that while he was still on CNN actively promoting the vaccine. So this is your juxtaposition, is that while he was on corporate media, I guess would we call the show News Nation corporate media? I don't know. That's not necessarily, I don't know anything about it, if that's
I guess if you,
media or not. But
yeah, who knows? I don't know.
But why does he feel that he has license to say this now when he didn't on CNN? So as soon as I heard this today, I was like, oh, someone's going to put together a hot reel of his pro-vaccine reporting while he was on CNN versus now it's all right to say it. Of course, someone did. We relied on Twitter user Brianna Morello. She had it right away. Watch.
But the problem is, how are they going to know who's vaccinated? You just said they showed the card. That's not the answer. The answer is a vaccine passport. Part of the reason that you're seeing what you're seeing in Florida is because of vaccine hesitancy. And an aspect of vaccine hesitancy is politics, especially in your state. Don't Fauci, Florida. We all know that was about. Do you feel responsible for spreading a message where I'm not going to take it because I don't care what Biden wants? Byron Donald's not going to take it because he doesn't care what Biden wants. You think that's a good message for people to hear?
Well, the first thing is my message was never about Joe Biden. The message is about me and my own personal health.
I'm not getting vaccinated because I don't want to. Hold on, no. I want to read your words. I want to read your words. Byron, I know you don't get to cut me off. It's my show. But just not requiring their customers to wear masks anymore. The unvaccinated are still being encouraged to, but proof won't be required. See, it's easy to see who is wearing a mask, right? Because either you got it or you don't. But if you don't have one on, how would you ever know if the person is vaccinated? I guess they could tell you. Would you believe them? So will all the unvaccinated just ditch their masks now? Because no one's going to be able to tell the difference. Now, where I live.
Okay. So that's why so many people hate the corporate media, because he never admitted any vaccine injury. He was for blanket vaccination of the population until he wasn't. And I hope that he gets better. And I hope he does find some answers, but it's indicative of why we don't trust them. Here's a new AP poll out recently showing that only 14% of respondents expressed a great deal of confidence in election-related information they receive from national sources. So basically the media, only 11% say the same thing about their local news media. We don't trust them because they put on blinders for things they don't want to report on. That's why, such as COVID. And then they fawn all over themselves like schoolgirls at a Taylor Swift concert when Albert Bourla comes on and do not ask hard questions. That's why. Let us know what you think of that in the chat below. We have more news to get to, though. Before we go, we're going to tell you about Frat Boy. What is it? Frat Boy Summer. It starts tomorrow. It's with an ultra-conservative beer company. Is this just, blowing off some steam, or is this indicative of something more? We're going to talk about that.
It's a direct response to Bud Light and the Bud Light backlash, so we'll get there. And yes, a lot of people saying, yes, News Nation is corporate media. They are owned by, and I think Grim in our chat was saying here, owned by Nexstar Media, competes with CNN and Fox News. So it is Nexstar. Yes, corporate media.
Okay.
Corporate media, of course. Okay, there you go. Well, we want to tell you about our friends over at GDR Labs, because you need to, if you suffer from pain, and look, everyone knows about the pain relief problems out there for people getting addicted, right, to different opioids and things like that. You may even be affected personally by it. You might know someone in your family that was addicted to opioids as a result of it. That's where a pioneering medical scientist comes in, Clint Winters. Now, you may have seen this world-renowned health expert featured in national media as he was unveiling a natural pain reliever that's taken the world by storm. Yes, I'm talking about Canalidine, which is the 100% drug-free way to get a full-body pain relief without dangerous pills. And as you read this, Canalidine, I'm going to say this right. Can you help me with this? Canalidine. I've written it out phonetically, and you can all help me here. Maybe anyone can help me.
Canolidine.
Canolidine. Okay. Canolidine. Canolidine. Well, okay. Canolidine. Now everyone at home will remember it because I'm saying it so many times. Canolidine. It's a 100% drug-free way to get full-body pain relief without dangerous pills. I can't even say pills now. Canolidine has become the go-to pain reliever for over 1 million Americans and hundreds of professional athletes. It's so powerful that it was even named the official pain reliever of the UFC. And those guys know a thing or two about managing pain. So now Clint explains how Canolidine is the only compound on earth that optimizes your body's natural painkillers called endorphins at any age. When taken daily, your body will fire back to relieving pain like you were just in your prime in no time. And let me tell you, it was skeptical, but it absolutely works. And you've got to try this right now, and you won't feel groggy. You're not going to have that, the addiction that you would get from some of these other things. There's no documented side effects. Canolidine has no documented side effects after 14 years of extensive testing. So try them right now for less than $1 per day. And Clint has even provided this private link until midnight tonight. You're just days away from finally beating pain forever. You can get this right now for less than $1 per day. And the private link will work until midnight tonight. It's trycano.com/redacted. Trycano.com/redacted. Try it right now for yourself for free.
All right, well, get ready for Frat Boy Summer. That's what a conservative beer company is calling for. And they're calling it the Pro-America Celebration, in celebration of these kids and what they did in encouraging more to do the same. So we're going to talk about who those kids are and why they're asking them to drink in a second. And yes, they said celebration and celebration of. Maybe they'd had a few. Frat Boy Summer starts tomorrow. This is a sponsored college party to celebrate some kids who prevented students on their campus from dishonoring the American flag during pro-Palestinian protests. Here it is. They are just holding the flag up so that it didn't reach the ground, and they prevented students from raising a Palestinian flag at their university in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Here they are talking to Fox News this weekend about what they did and why.
Yeah, well, as Jewish students on campus, we had kind of been exposed to these protests for a while. And these protests started out, as I'm going to say, there isn't a fundamental American right to protest, and I do respect that. And I respect other people's opinions. But when I started seeing, Jewish students getting mobbed with flags and chants and signs, I started to kind of realize that maybe these protests have evolved a little bit. And so I stepped up kind of to give a voice to the Jewish community on campus and to protect my identity. And when I saw the American flag go down, I knew I kind of had to step in and
that was a bridge too far.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah. All right. Trevor, so the UNC students have decided to respond. First of all, the American people have responded to this. The American people feel like there's a little bit of a heartbeat left. They weren't sure what was happening on college campuses.
Okay. So a conservative beer company says, good on you, boys, for holding up the flag. You get a keg party. They're saying, we've talked to their people. A rager is in the works. Now, I would just like to ask, do you think that this is conservative values? Yes, holding up a flag, but do we need to then give them drunk with alcohol? What do you think? Do these things go hand in hand?
I don't know. That's a conservative value. No, I mean the supporting the flag, yes, but
then let's throw them a rager.
Let's
is
get
that
them all
conservative?
drunk.
Because
let's get them all
I'm
underage
feeling
drunk.
very conservative mom and thinking that's dangerous. Can we reward them with a non-alcoholic beverage, or maybe a Jamba Juice?
A pizza
darling?
party?
Yeah.
A fun little pizza
are they
party.
hydro homies? Are they hydro homies? Can we just get them some water? Let's give them some water. What's wrong with water?
Some Monster Energy drinks, perhaps.
How about some carbonated water? I'll get you a whole one of those new wireless Costco sold kegs. I'm gonna fill it with some LaCroix. There you go, boys. You'll be just as happy with that.
You're most popular all on the block.
I know. I don't know why everyone doesn't want to go into my party. Now, the beer company, though, that's doing this is presenting themselves as the anti-Bud Light. This is a real ad. It's not satire. This beer company is called Ultra Right Beer Company. And again, they say they're the antithesis to woke Bud Light beer.
America's been drinking beer from a company that doesn't even know which restroom to use. That's why I created Conservative Dad's Ultra Right 100% woke-free beer. As conservatives, we're constantly getting hit in the face, left and right, by the woke mind virus. But the last place we want it is in our beer. If you know which bathroom to use, you know what beer you should be drinking. Stop giving money to woke corporations that hate our values. And to the rest of you woke corporations, stay the away from our kids.
Buy yours online in 42 states at ultrarightbeer.com.
So,
that's funny.
Yeah, it's great. Conservative values, right? But underage drinking, maybe? I'm just wondering if this is on brand for them to throw a rager for college kids who
What
are
do you guys
probably
think
underage.
in the chat? Yeah.
That seems to me a bit of a conflict, and I'm not comfortable with it because I have a teenage son, but I get what you're saying. I get it, right? New York Post columnist Miranda Devine says that this whole thing is a backlash, though, against an epidemic of arrogant, entitled women. And I want to say I really appreciated her point here. I can see what she means because I was formerly a sort of arrogant, entitled woman. I'm a reform. And this ad that I just showed you, this frat boy summer, was everything that these people hate: patriarchal masculinity, aggression, bullying. It's American patriotism that they think is an affront to people of color, which it isn't. Toxic white masculinity. That's what they would see when they see something like Frat Boy Summer. The left hates those things and they want to see them destroyed, but they forgot that those are actually people too. And most of them are hardworking and earnest, and you can't throw them out like dogs. Here's what she says. The display of irrepressible masculinity erupting in Gen Z is an affront to the grand societal feminization project on the left, which only has itself to blame. Frat Boy Summer is this year's backlash against an epidemic of arrogant, entitled women who've been coddled all their lives and think they're smarter and more important than they really are. She further says that the left has done nothing for these actual men, and this will cost President Biden this election. She says it's a nightmare for him because he's been pandering to Gen Z. And what is he doing? Well, he's splashing around billions of taxpayer dollars on student debt relief, relaxing cannabis legislation, championing trans kids as the greatest heroes of their generation, and inviting gender fluid young TikTok influencers to VIP events at the White House. This is not your granddad, Joe Biden, but none of it can close the growing ideological gulf between the sexes, which has its roots in the unjust treatment of boys and young men in recent decades. So all this list you see here in this middle paragraph, young men don't care about any of that. And it's not working. And so she says that young boys who still have their genitals intact are increasingly voting against Democrats, with and adhering to themselves to things like this, thus holding up the American flag on their free time. They didn't have to do this. They just were walking by and they said, oh no, this can't happen. We value this symbol. We're going to stand there. And what those boys did was they sang the national anthem. They put their hand on their heart. They chanted USA. And so all of these, what does she call them? Elite, arrogant, entitled women are so confused by this, just utterly confused. So they're celebrating a cultural revival with beer. Now, to be clear, the boys didn't choose the beer. The beer chose them, right? So the boys that we're talking about, the flag hoisters,
okay,
they are having a cultural revival. The beer company is coming along and saying, we're going to reward you. Okay. Now, not all conservative renaissance, though, involve frat parties. Look at this AP article saying a step back in time. America's Catholic Church sees an immense shift towards the old ways. This is talking about increasingly conservative values inside the church, in not just the Catholic Church, but specifically in this instance. They say that the progressive priests who dominated the U.S. church in the years after Vatican II are now dying off, basically, and younger priests are far more conservative. This one 87-year-old priest says, they all say they're trying to restore what all of us old guys ruined. But this priest, he said he fought for civil rights and reforms in Catholic school sex education, but not just those things. They say that this is a reaction to certain values that were changed in the church, and some Catholics like it, but those Catholics don't actually go to church. The church-going Catholics want something a bit more conservative. It says here that today's young priests are far more likely to believe that the church changed too much and they want to come back. And now, this one quote, a young man who is in the seminary says, there really aren't many liberals in seminaries anymore, and they wouldn't feel comfortable. So that's interesting, don't you think?
Well, yeah, I mean,
this like return to Christianity, return to like tribalistic feeling about your country. I don't know about or patriotism, not tribalism.
We've been seeing this shift more like towards more traditional values. It seems like over the past few years,
right?
And I think that's. I think you're seeing this. I think you're seeing this now, and you're seeing it among young men too. Particularly this like backlash against all this the trans ideology. Woke ideology in movies and films.
Right.
And I hear it just among like the 13-year-olds, like our sons, and they're like, I don't want to see that. That's like some woke garbage. I'm like, what? You just said that? You're like, yeah, my friends we don't want to watch that stuff. I'm like, really?
My son, when he was talking to a high schooler, he's in the 8th grade, about like, oh, that assembly, that was boring that they came out of. And the high schooler's like, oh, when you get into high school, they subject you to all kinds of woke garbage in assemblies. Like, this is what a teenager said to a fellow teenage boy.
It's good. Like, there's awareness about it. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't like this, but this is what it is. Yeah. And in fact, there is a shift. I want to say that it's a rejection of individualistic, illiberal ideas in young people. And it's something that I really didn't see coming. I thought that religious secularism would just take people away from these institutions. And I was thinking about this a lot this weekend after listening to Russell Brand talk about his baptism into Christianity. And then last week, Tucker Carlson interviewed Russian philosopher Alexander Dugin, and they talked about the West's obsession with individualism and how it led to an immoralistic society. Now, I'm not at all sure that I can show you this because this person's books are banned. So I would like to put up his picture and read you this part that really had my head spinning over the weekend as I thought about this sort of return to groups of value. What he says is individual is the key concept that was put in the center of liberal ideology. Liberalism is, in my reading, a kind of historical and cultural and political and philosophical process of liberation of individual, of any kind of collective identity that transcends the individual. And that started with refuse of the Catholic Church, of empire, Western empire as a collective identity. And then it was a revolt against the nationalist state as collective identity in favor of a purely civil society. Now, he goes on to say that of all these rejections, there were only 2 collective identities left to liberate humans from. Gender identity, because it is a collective identity. A liberation from gender has led to a new form of sexual individualism. And the last step that is not totally made yet is liberation from human identity, humanity optional. So I encourage you to watch this. This part just had me go, yeah, that's what we're going through. That's so interesting. But maybe we are collectively choosing the opposite right now. Maybe this is indicative of choosing back a collective identity, whether it be through your patriotism or your religion or what have you. Or maybe I'm just reading too much into a beer keg party. So you let me know.
It's possible.
What you think. Yeah, that's also very possible. But I found this interesting and encouraging and also a bit existential. So join me in that if you'd like.
All right. Well, we had a lot of news today. Sorry for a long show. We apologize. We try to bring you some great information on a regular basis. Thank you guys so much for being a part of our great community here. We do have a daily newsletter. You should all subscribe to that. Start your day off right by going to redacted.inc. That's the place to go. Go to redacted.inc. Put in your email address and you'll receive a welcome email from us. And then you will have to confirm it. So just make sure it might go to your spam folder, your junk folder, or something like that. So grab it out of your junk folder and click on confirm. Yes, you'd like to receive the daily newsletter. And you'll be delivered first thing in the morning, about 7:30 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. And we cover about 4 or 5 of the big stories of the day. So you'll be informed. It'd be a great way to start your morning. We cover some of the market news. We try to leave you with a little bit of a laugh as best we can in the morning, covering some of the big stories that the mainstream media ignores. So redacted.inc. Grab your free newsletter today to start your morning off right.
All right. We'll see you here tomorrow, everybody. Same time, same place. And please like and subscribe if you can, and tell your friends about us and let us know what you think about all of it. See ya.